The news tightened against pale human skin. Billions watched in silence, some through glass towers on Eidolon Station, others across 1,000 worlds. The feed shimmered on every display, the symbol of the Galactic Council blazing above a narrow platform. Daniel Miles, Earth's first diplomat, stood motionless beneath the lights, wrists bound, back straight. He didn't beg. He didn't plead. He only raised his eyes toward the alien judges floating in their grav chairs and said, calm as starlight, "History will remember who lit the match." Then the platform dropped. The sound that followed wasn't a scream, it was a low, collective gasp, as if the entire galaxy exhaled. Admiral Alara Miles watched her brother die from the bridge of the UTS Resolute, light years away. The transmission flickered once and went black, leaving only the echo of his words in her mind. No one spoke. Around her, officers stared at the frozen screen, faces drained of color. Someone whispered a curse, another crossed themselves out of old habit. Alara stood perfectly still, hands clasped behind her back, jaw locked. "Cut the feed," she said quietly. "Yes, Admiral." The sound died. Only the hum of the ship's reactor remained. She stared at the reflection in the viewport, her own face framed by the pale glow of the neutron star beyond. Her brother was gone. "Signal Earth Command," she said. "Tell them the Council has executed our ambassador." In the span of an hour, the news reached every colony. Crowds filled the streets of New Geneva and Arcadia Station, chanting Daniel's name. The Council embassies burned before dusk. At Lunar Command, Earth's leaders convened in the subterranean war chamber, a ring of steel and shadow beneath the gray surface of the moon. Alara stood before them, still in her black fleet uniform, the silver insignia of command gleaming against her chest. The room buzzed with overlapping voices. President Halvorsen slammed a fist on the table. "They hanged a diplomat. Under their own charter, that's an act of war." "Calm yourself," snapped Minister Zhao, head of the Terran Concord office. "Retaliation will bring the Council's fleets down on us. We can't fight 1,200 worlds. They murdered one of ours," Halvorsen said. "There's nothing left to negotiate." Alara's voice cut through the argument, steady but sharp. "Sir, may I speak?" Halvorsen nodded. She stepped forward. "Ambassador Miles was executed without due process. The Council claimed he leaked military data, yet refused to show evidence. That's not justice. That's a message." Zhao folded his arms. "And what message do you think they sent, Admiral? That humanity has forgotten its place." The words hung heavy. She took a breath. "If we let this stand, every species that ever doubted us will see weakness. They'll treat our treaties as paper and our lives as expendable." Halvorsen studied her face. "And what are you proposing?" "Withdraw from the Galactic Council immediately," she said. "Recall every diplomat, every ship. Bring our people home and prepare for what comes next." Zhao's eyes narrowed. "War?" Alara met his gaze. "Survival." That night, aboard the Resolute, she walked the observation deck alone. Outside, the neutron star pulsed, each flash a heartbeat of blue fire. She remembered Daniel's first message from Eidolon years ago. "Alara, they're strange but curious. They want to understand us. Maybe peace isn't impossible after all." He believed in the Council. In diplomacy. In something better. She clenched the small silver pendant hanging around her neck, a fragment of Titan's shattered dome, where both of them had survived the colony massacre as children. The metal was cold and smooth. "Captain," came a voice from behind her. It was Commander Imani, her second in command, a tall, calm officer with a voice like gravel. "Report," Alara said. "Earth Command wants all Terran ships to hold position. No movements toward Council space without authorization." "Authorization," Alara murmured. "They think restraint will earn respect." Imani hesitated. "There's talk of a full recall from the Concord. But some worlds might not wait for the order." Alara turned. "Explain." "Colonial defense fleets are mobilizing on their own. Riots on Mars and Europa. The people want blood." Elara exhaled slowly. And you, Commander? What do you want? Imani's gaze didn't waver. I want to serve humanity, Admiral. But I won't pretend this isn't personal for you. It's not about me. With respect, sir, it always starts that way. Elara looked past him at the swirling starfield. He was my brother, she said finally. But he was also Earth's voice. They silenced him to remind us who rules this galaxy. Imani didn't reply. Prepare the fleet, she said. Quietly. If the Council thinks we'll bow, they're mistaken. Hours later, she stood in the strategy chamber, surrounded by holographic star maps. Blue lights traced the known routes of Council patrols. Red markers indicated Terran colonies at risk. She studied them in silence, then keyed in a secure channel to Earth Command. Admiral Miles? A weary voice answered. It was President Halvorsen. You're not calling for permission, are you? No, sir, she said. For clarity. If they move on our colonies, we respond. No hesitation. He nodded once. Understood. But remember, one wrong move, and we lose everything. With respect, sir, she said softly. We already did. In the early hours, Elara visited the memorial hall. 1,000 lights floated above the floor, each representing a fallen Terran in service. She walked among them until she reached the newest, a single white flame bearing the name Ambassador Daniel Miles. She stood there a long time, the ship silent around her. Imani's voice echoed from the doorway. Fleet's ready, Admiral. Elara nodded without turning. Send word to all captains. We wait for their next move. But if they strike first. She looked up at her brother's name, the light reflecting in her eyes. We make sure the stars remember why they feared us. 2 days later, a council transmission arrived, brief, formal, and dripping with contempt. Asterisk to the government of Earth. Your aggression and public disorder violate the Concord's peace accords. Any further interference in council operations will be met with decisive force. Asterisk. Elara read it once, then deleted it. They've already decided what we are, she said. Imani frowned. And what's that? Savages in metal suits. Beasts who clawed their way off one rock and dared to call it civilization. Then what now? Elara looked through the viewport at the distant shimmer of Eidolon's star. No, she said. We remind them that beasts bite. She closed her eyes, hearing Daniel's voice again, quiet and unyielding. You fear us because we remember what it means to be free. When she opened them, her decision was already made. She straightened her uniform, squared her shoulders, and walked back toward the command bridge. The hum of the ship rose as the engines came alive, ready for orders. Set course for Sol, she said. The Council just declared war. They just don't know it yet. The stars looked different when you knew they might soon be on fire. From the bridge of the UTS Resolute, Admiral Elara Miles watched the border between Council and Terran space shimmer in cold indifference. Dozens of Terran ships hung in silent formation, sleek hulls glinting like knives beneath distant suns. The official order from Earth Command still said stand by, but the fleet was restless. The silence after her brother's death had turned into something dangerous. Resolve. Status report, Elara said. Commander Imani scanned the tactical screen. Fleet in full readiness. Colonial patrols report Council vessels massing at the Orion Gate. No confirmed hostilities, yet. They're waiting for us to flinch. They'll wait a long time, Admiral. She almost smiled, but the weight in her chest didn't move. For the first time in generations, humanity stood alone among the stars, and she wasn't sure if that made them brave or doomed. By nightfall, the official recall was announced. Earth withdrew from the Galactic Concord. Every human diplomat, trader, and scientist across Council space was ordered home. Some never made it. The Council branded Earth rogue. Trade embargoes began within hours. Communication buoys went dark one by one. Within a week, 3 Terran colonies vanished from the network. Elara stood in the command center as reports scrolled across the holotable. New Rotterdam, silent. Vega outpost, bombarded. Arcadia station, evacuating under fire. Imani's voice was low. Council's not wasting time. No, she said. They're cleansing the borders. The word hung between them, ugly, ancient, and all too human. That night, Alara met with Captain Lynn Salvek aboard the Resolute. Rin's tall, gray-skinned form contrasted sharply with the Terran officers around him. His translucent eyes flickered like bioluminescent pools, a trait of his species, the Varan, one of the few races sympathetic to humanity. "Admiral," he said, inclining his head, "you shouldn't have called me here. My presence could be misunderstood." "It already is," she replied. "The Council calls you a traitor for questioning their verdict. That makes us allies." He gave a dry, alien approximation of a smile. "Your kind moves fast from diplomacy to rebellion. My kind learned that waiting politely rarely saves lives." Rin's expression dimmed. "You want proof your brother was framed." "I want the truth," she said. "And justice, if it still exists in this galaxy." He handed her a small crystalline data shard. "I pulled this from the Council's restricted archives. It contains communication logs between the Arbiter's Chamber and several defense contractors from the Jacques Harry Dominion. Vaktal's home faction," Alara said. Rin nodded. "They manufactured the evidence used against your brother. But there's more. The Council knew, and sealed the case under security preservation." Alara stared at the shard glowing faintly in her palm. "They killed him to protect their illusion of order. The Concord survives on perception," Rin said softly. "And humanity's defiance terrifies them." The next day, she took the evidence to Earth Command via encrypted channel. The feed crackled with static, Council interference growing stronger. "President Halvorsen," she said, "I have proof the Arbiter fabricated the charges against Ambassador Miles. Sending data packet now." The signal flickered. His image distorted, voice cutting through in fragments. "Too late. Warships mobilizing. Eidolon fleet moving towards Sol Corridor, prepare." The line went dead. Imani turned sharply. "They're coming." Alara straightened. "Then we meet them halfway." Hours later, alarms screamed through the ship. "Council patrol at the Orion Gate, 12 vessels. They've crossed the neutral zone," a lieutenant shouted. Alara's pulse steadied. She'd waited for this moment. "All ships, battle stations. Defensive posture only, until they fire first." The fleet moved with disciplined grace, engines burning blue against the void. The Resolute took point, her hull bristling with kinetic cannons and rail batteries. Across the dark gulf, alien ships glimmered, sleek crescents of silver and emerald, their energy fields humming. The comm channel opened, a cold mechanical voice cutting through. "Terran vessels. You are in violation of Council space. Power down and surrender for tribunal processing." Alara's jaw tightened. "This is human territory. Withdraw immediately. You are no longer recognized as a sovereign entity. Comply or be neutralized." Imani muttered. "So much for diplomacy." A flare of light erupted from the enemy line, a plasma torpedo streaking toward them. "Evasive!" Alara barked. The torpedo grazed the Resolute's shields, sending a tremor through the hull. "That was their first shot," Imani said. Alara didn't hesitate. "Return fire." The void exploded into motion. Rail slugs streaked across the black, slicing through alien shields. Terran ships advanced in precise formation, engines roaring like thunder in the vacuum. The Resolute's main guns fired, twin lances of molten metal tearing through the lead Council cruiser. It broke apart in a silent bloom of fire. "Direct hit!" "Maintain pressure," Alara ordered. "Target their command vessels." Imani turned. "Council reinforcements inbound, 6 more signatures. Then we finish this before they arrive." Her voice carried through the comms, cold, commanding, alive with purpose. "All Terran ships, mark this day. The Concord hanged our diplomat and called it justice. Today, we answer in kind." The battle raged for hours. Council ships shattered under coordinated Terran fire. Elara moved through the chaos with surgical calm, issuing orders with the precision of instinct. When the smoke cleared, only wreckage drifted where the enemy fleet had stood. "Casualty report," she said. "3 frigates lost, 12 damaged," Imani replied. "Council fleet destroyed. No survivors." Elara looked at the tactical display, red icons fading one by one. The silence that followed was heavier than victory. "Transmit our withdrawal notice," she said finally. "We didn't start this war, but we'll finish it if they push again." Imani hesitated. "Admiral, what if they don't stop?" She glanced at the stars. "Then we remind them why they feared us." Later, in her quarters, Elara replayed the data shard Rin had given her. The alien script translated across her display, a sequence of messages between Vaktal and his counselors. "The human envoy's influence grows. A spectacle must be made. Evidence will be fabricated. The Concord must remain pure. A hanging will suffice." Her throat tightened. "You bastards," she whispered. The door chimed. Imani entered, his face shadowed. "Transmission from Rin Salvek. He says the Council has declared your fleet a terrorist organization. They're calling the battle a massacre." Elara exhaled slowly. "They wanted a war. Now they have won." Across the galaxy, the propaganda began. The Council broadcast images of Terran ships amid burning debris, claiming humanity had slaughtered surrendering crews. Several species voted to invoke Article 9, Extermination Protocol. Elara listened to the intercepted broadcast in silence. When it ended, she turned to her officers. "No more half measures. Begin full mobilization. Recall all colonial defense fleets. We fight on our terms now." Imani nodded grimly. "And if Earth Command says otherwise?" She looked out the viewport, eyes cold and unwavering. "Then they'll have to court-martial me after the war." Before dawn, she sent one final message to Rin Salvek through the encrypted line. "Thank you for the truth. I'll see it reach the stars, no matter the cost." The reply came moments later. "Be careful, Elara. The Council hunts those who reveal its lies. Then let them come." She sent back. "They'll find humanity waiting." Outside, the debris of the Orion Gate drifted like ash, the first battlefield of a war that would burn across galaxies. Elara watched the wreckage spin through the void, fragments of alien metal reflecting the light of distant suns. She whispered, almost to herself, "You fear us because we remember what it means to be free." And somewhere beyond the horizon of light, the galaxy trembled. The galaxy had gone quiet. Not peaceful, suffocated. Every relay, every signal buoy, every diplomatic channel between Earth and the wider stars was cut. The Galactic Council had severed humanity from the network that once bound civilizations together. Messages from the colonies arrived weeks late, if at all. Most didn't arrive at all. Admiral Elara Miles stood in the dim war room of the ETS Resolute, surrounded by a ghostly projection of the galaxy. Blue icons marked Terran fleets. Red stormed across everything else. Commander Imani broke the silence. "We've lost comms with Vega and Atlas sectors. Could be interference. Could be worse. It's deliberate," Elara said. "They're isolating us. First they erased Daniel's name. Now they'll erase our existence." Imani's jaw tightened. "And we're supposed to fight blind?" "No," she said. "We adapt. Like we always have." Her voice carried the steadiness of someone who had long since burned through grief and found only purpose left behind. The Ark Fleet, humanity's last great armada, was assembling beyond the Perseus Rift, a region the Council rarely entered. 200 ships, carriers, destroyers, and colony transports turned into war vessels. Elara moved among them like a conductor guiding an orchestra on the edge of collapse. Supplies were thin. Morale thinner. But fear had turned to defiance, and that was something she could command. She stood before her officers in the strategy chamber. "We have a lead," she began, tapping a holographic map. Rin Salvek's intelligence pointed to a data vault deep in the Helios Rift, one of the Council's black archives. If the records exist anywhere, it's there. What exactly are we looking for? Asked Lieutenant Graves. Proof. The unedited record of Daniel Miles' trial, every lie, every fabrication. We expose that, and the Council's moral foundation cracks. Graves frowned. And if the vault doesn't exist? Then we make sure something else does, their fear. They reached the Helios Rift 2 weeks later, the fleet gliding through a maze of violet nebulae and magnetic storms. It was a graveyard of forgotten wars. Derelict ships drifted like tombstones. Ren Salvek's small cruiser waited amid the debris field. His voice, calm but weighted, filled the calms. Admiral, I wasn't certain you'd come. You risked your life to send that data. I don't abandon allies, Ilara said. You may regret that sentiment, he replied dryly. The Council knows you're searching for the vault. They've dispatched the Judicator fleet, Vaktal's personal command. Imani cursed under his breath. That's half the Council's firepower. Rin's eyes glowed faintly on the hollow screen. The vault lies within an old wormhole generator at the rift's center. But reaching it means flying through a storm that eats ships. Ilara's expression didn't change. Then we'll fly fast. The fleet entered the rift. The storm was alive, electric tendrils ripping through space, tearing at hulls. The Resolute shuddered as lightning arcs danced across its shields. Structural integrity down to 80%, called Imani. If we stay in this turbulence. We won't, Ilara said. Focus on the beacon ahead. Through the static and storm, a faint glimmer appeared, the vault. A massive station carved into a fragment of asteroid, sealed under layers of energy shields. Helios vault confirmed, Graves said. But it's transmitting distress signals. Repeating the same code. Ilara leaned closer. Translate it. A moment later, a voice filled the bridge, fragmented, terrified, alien. This is Arbiter Research Node. We were ordered to purge all human records. Please, someone. The transmission cut off. They're wiping the evidence, Ilara said. We're out of time. They launched assault pods through the storm. The Resolute's Marines breached the vault's outer hull in silence. Inside, corridors twisted like veins of glass and metal. Ilara led the team herself, armored and armed, her face pale in the flickering light. Download everything, she ordered the tech officer. Prioritize trial data, correspondence logs, anything tied to Vaktal. Within minutes, the data drives lit up, thousands of encrypted files flooding into their systems. Then the alarms began. Multiple warp signatures incoming. Imani's voice crackled over comms. Judicator fleet dropping out of FTL. Admiral, you need to move. Ilara's jaw set. Copy that. Finish the upload. The walls shook. From space, the first salvo struck, emerald beams slicing through the rift's shadows. Council ships emerged like predators, their hulls gleaming with the insignia of Vaktal's order. Rin's ship broke formation, shielding the Resolute with its smaller hull. Get your people out! He shouted over the channel. Ilara sprinted back toward the docking bay, data cores slung across her back. The last Marines boarded as explosions rippled through the vault. Seal the bay, she commanded. The docking clamps released, and the Resolute blasted free. The battle that followed was chaos wrapped in silence. Weapons fired, ships died, but the rift's magnetic storms drowned all sound. It was a war fought in ghostly stillness, flashes of light without noise, destruction without echo. Flank them on Vector 9, Ilara ordered. Don't let them pin us. Dozens of Terran ships dove through the storm, weaving through the Council's lines. A destroyer exploded ahead, its debris tearing through a Judicator frigate. The Resolute's railguns fired, carving molten wounds into alien hulls. But the enemy was endless. Admiral, our port shields are failing, Imani called. Divert auxiliary power. Get us out of the kill zone. Another explosion rocked them, throwing Ilara against the console. Blood streaked her temple, but she didn't stop. Rin's ship appeared on the tactical display, crippled and burning. Rin, she said into the calm. You need to jump out now. His voice came back, weak and calm. Too late. They've disabled our core. But I'm transmitting my logs, proof of the Arbiter's conspiracy, coordinates to every Council Black site. Don't let this die with me. Static swallowed his last words. His ship vanished in a bloom of white light. Elara stared at the explosion for a long second, then turned back to her crew. All ships, disengage and retreat to fallback coordinates. But Admiral, the Council's blocking every jump gate. Then we make our own path. She triggered the command console, linking the drives of every Terran ship into a single synchronized burst. The Resolute's reactor screamed as the fleet tore open a rift in space, a blind jump through chaos. Brace for translation. Light engulfed them. The world folded into nothing. When they reemerged, the void was still. The Helios rift was gone. So was half their fleet. Imani's voice was quiet. We've lost over 100 ships. Elara didn't answer. Her eyes were on the flickering console, where a small icon blinked, data recovery complete. Open the file, she said. The hologram shimmered to life, the trial of Ambassador Daniel Miles, unedited. Vaktal's voice filled the room, arrogant and cold. Humanity's nature is violence. The trial is formality. The verdict was decided long before this meeting began. The feed ended. Imani whispered, You have your proof. Elara looked at the crew around her, their faces hollow from battle. No, she said. We have the truth. Now we show the galaxy what justice really looks like. Hours later, she stood before the broadcast console, patched through every still functioning Terran beacon across the stars. Her voice went out into the void, raw and unflinching. To every species still capable of conscience, this is Admiral Elara Miles of Earth. The Galactic Council executed my brother for crimes he never committed. The evidence you will now see proves it. They fear humanity not for our weapons, but because we refuse to kneel. The footage played. The galaxy saw the lies. Council worlds erupted in chaos. Protests. Riots. Splinter factions refused Vaktal's rule. For the first time, the Council bled from within. But as Elara turned from the console, Imani's face was grave. Incoming transmission, the Judicator flagship. Vaktal himself. The alien's image filled the bridge, tall, insected, his eyes like shards of obsidian. You think truth will save you, human? You've only sown rebellion. The Council will erase your world for this. Elara met his gaze, calm and defiant. Then you'll have to dig through the ashes of your empire to find us. The transmission cut. Outside, the fleet drifted among the stars, battered but unbroken. The war had changed. It was no longer about territory. It was about truth, and the right to exist. Elara turned toward the viewing window, the faint light of soul just visible across the void. We've shown them what we are, she said quietly. Now they'll see what we're capable of. And somewhere in the dark, the galaxy began to whisper the words once spoken by a dying man. You fear us because we remember what it means to be free. The stars over Sol burned colder now. The war had lasted 3 years. 3 years since the execution that set the galaxy on fire. The Earth Alliance was fractured, its colonies scarred, its fleets scattered, but not broken. Admiral Elara Miles stood at the viewport of the UTS Resolute, watching the battered remnants of the Ark fleet regroup near Jupiter's orbit. Beyond them hung the shattered ruins of the first alien invasion, thousands of metallic carcasses drifting in silence. Commander Imani approached quietly. Damage reports from the forward line. We lost 32 ships repelling the latest assault. We're holding, but barely. Elara didn't look away from the stars. And the Council? Consolidating. Half their factions broke away after your broadcast. Vaktal's using the chaos to declare himself High Arbiter for life. He always wanted an empire, she said softly. Now he's built one on fear. Imani hesitated. There's more. They're moving the Judicator fleet towards Sol. Full strength. He's coming to end this himself. Elara finally turned. Her face was drawn, the fatigue of war etched into every line. Then we end him first. Later, in the strategy chamber, the surviving captains gathered, veterans from every corner of human space. Hollow projections of the Judicator fleet filled the room, towering dreadnoughts, fortress-class carriers, escort swarms that blotted out the stars. Elara stood before them. We can't match their numbers, and we can't outgun them. But we can strike where it matters most. Captain Vega frowned. You're suggesting a decapitation strike? Yes. The Arbiter's flagship, the Eternal Verdict. We destroy it, and the Council collapses into chaos. Without Vaktal, their unity dies. Imani crossed his arms. That's a suicide mission. It's survival, she said. If he reaches Earth, there won't be anything left to save. Silence filled the room. One by one, the captains nodded. There were no arguments left. 2 days later, the fleet departed Sol's orbit, engines flaring like the embers of dying stars. Their destination, Eidolon Station, where it had all begun. The site of Daniel Miles' execution. The seat of Vaktal's empire. The journey through subspace was long and eerily quiet. Most of the crew avoided sleep. Those who did dreamed of fire and empty skies. In her private cabin, Elara opened a small hololocket. Daniel's image flickered to life, smiling as if he'd never known fear. You were right, she whispered. They feared what we might become. And now they'll learn why. When the fleet dropped out of FTL near Eidolon, the void was already burning. The Judicator fleet awaited, hundreds of ships arranged like a wall of blades. In the center loomed the Eternal Verdict, its obsidian hull reflecting the pale light of the neutron star. Enemy range in 60 seconds, Imani reported. Elara's voice was calm. All ships focus fire on the flagship. Ignore everything else. They'll tear us apart. They'll try. The first volley hit like a sunrise. The void erupted in streaks of plasma and kinetic fire. The Resolute shuddered as its shields flared, hull plates blistering under the onslaught. Return fire! Elara shouted. Terran guns roared. Entire wings of Council cruisers vanished in incandescent bursts. The fleet pushed forward, a spear of light cutting into the storm. Direct hit on the Verdict's outer hull, Imani called. Keep the pressure. An explosion rocked the bridge. A crewman was thrown from his post. Smoke filled the air. Shields at 40%. Elara steadied herself. We're not dying here. Redirect all power to the main batteries. I want that ship's heart exposed. Then, across the chaos, Vaktal's voice filled the comms, deep, resonant, and laced with fury. Admiral Miles. Humanity's defiance ends today. I offered your species peace, and you chose annihilation. Elara replied coldly. You offered us chains. We broke them. You think you've unmasked me, but your truth only sowed ruin. You are the disease of this galaxy. She leaned closer to the console. Then let me be its cure. The Resolute dove toward the flagship, engines screaming. Fighters spun around them like swarming embers. The Verdict's cannons unleashed blinding torrents of plasma. Forward batteries, all hands to impact positions, Elara ordered. Imani turned to her. We can't win this head on. We're not trying to win, she said. We're ending it. She keyed a command. The ship's reactor began to overload, systems flashing red. Imani's eyes widened. You're detonating the core? It's the only way to breach their shields. Once we're inside, transmit the truth again. Make sure the galaxy sees this. He stared at her, torn between duty and disbelief. You won't make it out. I wasn't supposed to, she said quietly. This war started with my family's death. Let it end with mine. The Resolute broke through the final defense line, hull ablaze. Alarms wailed as the reactor neared critical. Elara gripped the railing, her voice cutting through the chaos. Open all channels, she commanded. Across the galaxy, every surviving human ship, every rebel listening post, Every pirate frequency flickered alive as her face appeared, scorched, resolute, unbroken. To every world that still listens, this is Admiral Elara Miles of Earth. The Council hanged my brother for the truth. They silenced billions to preserve their order. But today, they'll remember us. We may die here, but humanity will never kneel again. She looked to Imani. Get the crew to escape pods. That's an order. He shook his head. Not leaving you. You are, she said, forcing a faint smile. Someone has to tell them what happened. She handed him Daniel's pendant, the small shard of Titan's dome. Keep this. Remind them who we were. For a long moment Ether spoke. Then he saluted, eyes hard with tears. For Earth. For freedom, she replied. The bridge trembled as the Resolute plunged into the Verdict's hull. The explosion that followed was silent in the vacuum, a blossom of white light that outshone the stars. The shockwave tore through the battlefield. Council ships shattered. The Verdict disintegrated, fragments scattering into the neutron star's pull. Elara Miles was gone. But her message had already spread. Across the galaxy, her broadcast replayed endlessly, the final testament of humanity's defiance. We may die here, but humanity will never kneel again. Months later, the war officially ended, though peace never came. The Council fractured beyond repair. Dozens of alien worlds declared independence. The age of the Concord was over. On Earth, a monument stood in the shadow of the old lunar command, a single white flame beneath engraved words. Admiral Elara Miles, who taught the galaxy that freedom is never given, only taken. Commander Imani, now head of the Terran Navy, stood before it in silence. Around him, cadets read her speech in hushed voices. He whispered to the flame. You won, Elara. Not the war, but the right to be remembered. Above them, fleets rebuilt. New banners rose. The scars of battle healed, but the echo of her words lived on, whispered in every rebellion, every uprising, every corner of the stars where tyranny tried to root itself again. And though the Council was gone, the war never truly ended. It only changed its shape. Because as long as there were chains, someone would remember her voice saying, You fear us because we remember what it means to be free.